This video is for you parents. If you have a toddler, a grade schooler at home, and you feel that suddenly these sensory issues have shown up, they're having meltdowns that they didn't have before. They suddenly don't like the tags on their clothes. They don't like going to a birthday party, or they are in a new classroom and feeling overwhelmed and stressed by the situation. So I want to show you when the brain is developing what's happening here. And as you can see, there's sensory building happens over a series of milestones and months. And what we see often happening is, as a parent, you think, everything was going along okay. They never had this before, but all of a sudden they show up. And I want to show you why that can happen. So early on, the brain and the nervous system, its job is to take in those early sensory responses, right? When your baby's in the womb, they respond to you touching your belly and they give a little kick, or they hear music or your voice, and they're getting those in utero responses. If there's stress happening early on in utero, it actually starts to wire your baby's nervous system to experience more stress as well. Depending on how labor and delivery goes, there can be stress in that realm. Maybe there was forceps or C-section or a stalled labor and delivery, and baby got stuck for a little while and had to be helped through. That early delivery response can create a stress response in your baby as well. I'm going to talk about in a moment what area most commonly is affected in your child's nervous system and why that can also lead to sensory issues later on. So those early experiences are critical for your baby's sensory systems to start to learn how to respond. And if there's stress early on, now that sensory system is going to be perceiving more stress and likely to respond with more stress in the future. Next, we've got the foundational pieces that an infant needs to be doing: eating, sleeping, pooping, right? So depending on how well they can latch, if they're feeling maybe stiff, arching, colic, stressful when they're born, and less of a calm state, you might see that being affected in their sleep. And of course, pooping is in the realm of plumbing. When a baby is eating, they need to bring food in, break it up, move it down, and move it through, whether that's breast milk, formula milk, or later on with solids. Ultimately, these are the foundational pieces that when they're working efficiently, they allow your child's nervous system to continue to develop. So next up are the motor milestones: rolling, sitting, crawling, walking. All these pieces are laying the foundation for your child to start to move and interact with the world. So especially this early bit, the first 4 to 6 months, these basics are really your child's priority. After that, then their nervous system is really starting to move into this phase here. And we know that walking is going to be, in the around a year old, maybe a little bit earlier than a year, maybe a year and a half. It's not critical the time your child walked, but more that they went through the milestones going into that. So if they skipped crawling as an example, that's actually an indicator we use in our office that something might be missing in this category that now is ultimately setting their brain up for the things we want to see in our child. We want to see them interacting socially. Maybe you notice your child starting to retreat from social situations. As I mentioned, maybe it's going into school for the first time and they're feeling overwhelmed by the classroom. We see kiddos that have sensitivity to sounds or lights, to watching facial cues. That social piece might be overwhelming their sensory system and they're going to want to shut down. If the brain is feeling stressed, it's more likely that now there's going to be big emotions. We have a girl we're working with that just finished kindergarten, and before she started getting adjusted, mom said everything was a big thing. Now there's just maybe 3 things a day that are big things because her emotions are starting to become more regulated. And with that, then, we see behavioral issues. So oftentimes parents will come to us because their kid's having tantrums or meltdowns, those big explosions in behaviors, and they're wondering, what can we do to help them out? And the first thing we often share with parents is it's not your kiddo trying to be a bad kid. It's not them trying to be defiant or being stubborn. It's simply that their brain is being overwhelmed and feeling a lot of stress, and that's what they need to do to let that stress out and clear it out. So if you have noticed one of these concerns with your child, the thing is, it's often not noticed until this phase, because these little things we don't necessarily think of as early on as a sensory concern. We think of them in a separate category. And yeah, guess what? Constipation, maybe a congested immune system with lots of ear infections and sinus issues and colds that last a long time is a separate issue than sensory, but it's a building block that the sensory system needs to be able to do these bigger things later on in life. So that's what we see when a kiddo is struggling, and what we talk about with parents to be able to help them understand what to do to help. And that's the most important piece, is if your kiddo is struggling with a sensory issue, with big emotions, with social concerns, with meltdowns that last 40 minutes, an hour and a half, you're not alone, and we can help by getting your child's nervous system in a calm and grounded state. It allows them to go back to that foundation, put the building blocks in order to allow their success in the other areas that we want them to succeed in. So please reach out if you have any questions. Check out the sensory section on our website. We have lots of videos and articles and blogs and stories of other families that we've worked with, and we'd love to help you as well. I'll see you soon.